sooner or later, we have to give up our fascination with attaining the goal. When the goal is attaining freedom from suffering, that does not stop the mind from treating it as any ambitious gripped, grasped, clung to type of a ambition, drive, motivation to attain the goal, whatever the goal may be, by the way, not just attaining nibbana, freedom from suffering. That does not mean, of course, that one should not have the goal. Of course not. Having the goal is going to set us on the right path. And to maintain that course requires us to maintain our understanding as to what the goal represents. Why do I need this? Why there's this incredible need for this to occur? And it's not going to occur unless I put my energy, my focus, my efforts, my resources into action in that trajectory. But what we are relinquishing, when I say we have to give up the goal even at some point, is that idea that simply by having the goal itself is sufficient. Because that is what oftentimes will happen with many a meditator. In the last session, we covered Bhumija Sutta, and we saw how the Buddha was pulling the rug from underneath this whole concept of having vows as the quintessential criterion, the thing that makes it happen, the goal itself or the vow itself. And the Buddha was clearly demonstrating his teaching from everyone else's out there. And that is, the vow does nothing. Ultimately, the vow means nothing if it is not put into action. So the Buddha kept on, if you remember, again and again, making that statement, returning back to that statement of his when he said, whether the person makes the vow or not, whether the person makes the vow or not, so long as they are moving in the right direction, they are applying the right effort, whether they did make the vow or not is irrelevant, is pointless to discuss, because even if the person never knew that they made a vow, they will attain freedom from suffering. And if you look at the story after story after story within the discourses, within the suttas, of actual encounters with individuals who did not know anything about the Dhamma, at least in that lifetime, that is. And they met the Buddha. They came across the Buddha. They weren't even coming to listen to a Dhamma talk, but they just saw some people moving in a certain direction. They went along and they leaned against a tree, sat next to some people they knew, and they heard the Buddha describe certain things. And all of a sudden they became Sotapannas. Sakadaga means once returners, non-returners, even arahants. They never made the vow as far as they could remember, but they had been working on their sila, they had been working on their mental cultivation, they had been searching for applying techniques to penetrate through delusion, which is panya, wisdom, discernment, unbeknownst to them, basically, in that lifetime. Because the momentum is so strong. That's what matters, not the goal itself. So having the goal in mind means nothing. Because that's what we have a lot happening to this day in the, even in places where they claim to be practicing the earliest teachings of Lord Buddha. For this reason, I chose today's sutta, which happens to be from the collection of discourses, from the connected discourses specifically, Samyutta Nikaya, and it is the one where we encounter Venerable Anuruddha. In this, and it's obviously it's in the subsection called Anuruddha Samyutta. Venerable Anuruddha, who happened to be the half-brother of Venerable Ananda, and he was one of the princes that went and ordained along with a group. Ananda was included, a few others as well, and Devadatta was there too. But Venerable Anuruddha, we have done several discourses with him, was really struggling to attain the goal. In one of the suttas, I think it was the Dutiya Anuruddha Sutta, from the numerical discourses, or Tatiya, or fourth book of the fourth, book of the fours, that is, from the numerical discourses, where we see him coming to his friend, Venerable Satipatthana, asking him for help when he says, friend, with my mind being so laser-like focused and having already the Dibba Chakku, or the ability to see with the divine eye, I'm able to see through the galaxies. I'm able to see and penetrate and see places that are impossible to see. And he says, even though I have that ability, I am not yet an arahant. He says, even though I can calm the mind down and I can get into that one-pointedness, my samadhi is so good, yet I have not yet attained arahantship. And Venerable Sariputta says, that is conceit in you, that you are able to do this. You're able to see what the devas are doing right now. You're able to see and penetrate the earth and look at what the ants are doing right now. For example, you're able to look into space and see black holes in the cosmos. But you're not able to see or to attain arahantship. He says that is your fear, your agitation, your greed. So he says, instead of that motivation, just keep your focus on that which is undying. Amata dhatu. Focus on the undying fact that this Dhamma shows, the deathless element that's undeniable, that is unchanging, that is unconditioned. Focus on that, because samadhi will come and go. Big deal. And that's what he does. He focuses on the practice, gets his mind off being so fixated on the goal itself, because that will agitate the mind. That's why in the beginning I said, sooner or later we have to drop this fascination with attaining the goal. There's nothing noble about it, really. The nobility part comes in with your practice of sila, samadhi, panya on a moment-to-moment basis. And that's what Venerable Anuruddha did, because in the later suttas, we see how, as today's sutta, which is the Sabbattha Gāmini Sutta, it is from the Samyutta Nikaya, number 52.17. And it is where you have a group of bhikkhus coming to Venerable Anuruddha, and they're asking, how did you do it? How did you find it? Because he did become an Arahant after he took the advice of his spiritual friend, Venerable Satipatthana. He really went ahead and focused on the right thing, which was focusing on that which is undying, Nibbana. But through the practice, not by simply having a goal. Oh, I'm going to attain Nibbana, I'm going to attain Sotapanna. I've had students who were fixated on attaining Sotapanna. Why? We don't even know why. It's just another goal, just like any ambitious movement. It's like that CEO who wants to make another million or billion. Or to get some physical features happen to you, build a stronger body, get over a disease. Even though you and I know that the disease, even if it goes away, you will die. What kind of a goal is that? The headache is going to go away eventually when you're dead. So that cannot be the goal. It's the practice that makes us understand, not the attainment of a goal. This is key. Most people are still missing out on this very blatant fact that the Buddha kept talking about. Here we see Venerable Anuruddha, therefore, bringing us to the core practice, and that is the Satipatthana. We talk about meditation, we talk about mindfulness. Everybody talks about mindfulness. It's the thing that, the catchphrase. Millions of people make so much money off of it. Buddhist traditions claim to be practicing that today. But are we really? So I chose today's sutta because Venerable Anuruddha, again, focuses on the practice specifically that allowed him to attain freedom from suffering by dropping the goal as such and focusing on what really matters, what is relevant to you, to him when he was alive. And that is the four foundations or establishments of mindfulness. And those are kaya, body, feeling, mental states, the mind, basically the quality of the mind, and then phenomena and their relationships, what we call the dhammas, or the things or phenomena in nature, states of like fear, for example, that comes in, or to break down the body into the five aggregates, to be able to see that becomes a thing for you to observe, because it's there, it's an aggregate, it's a collection, it's a cluster, it's a heap of things happening. And you don't see it as a compact phenomenon. It breaks apart in front of your eyes as you're developing the Satipatthana from Kaya-anupassana, Veda-anupassana, Chitta-anupassana into Dhamma-anupassana. And that will be the sutta today. Because we've done the Satipatthana, we've done the Anapanasati Sutta in the past. But it's very worthwhile to go revisit, because sometimes, if not most of the times, many people think that they have this, they have it locked in the system, they understand the Satipatthana, when we don't. We get sidetracked. We get sidetracked with our goals, ambitions, and we start squeezing and pushing. I've seen this in students. We get stale, we get tired, we get bored. We stick to a method that we like, even though we know it doesn't work 100%. And we relinquish the instruction that is there of those who have already walked the path and attained the goal of the holy life. As today's sutta is about Venerable Anuruddha. He's an example of that. So in English, the translation of the title, which is Sabbattha Gāmini Sutta, is where all the different paths of practice lead. So this is SN 52.17 from the Samyutta Nikaya, the Connected Discourses. Let's begin. At one time, the Venerable Anuruddha was staying in Savathi's Jada's Park at Anathapindika's monastery. Then a group of bhikkhus went and approached the Venerable Anuruddha, and after exchanging friendly and appreciative greetings with him, they sat to one side and asked him the following question. By practicing what? With strong earnestness, and what meditation object has our friend, the Venerable Anuruddha, dedicatedly cultivated, with which he was able to attain the great direct and intuitive knowledge? Friends, I attained the great direct and intuitive knowledge by dedicatedly cultivating the practice of the four establishments of mindfulness, and with strong earnestness. Satipatthana is what English here is translated the four establishments of mindfulness practice. And what are these four? Friends, I meditate while observing whatever experiences that arise or take place internally within the body. I meditate while observing the disappearance of whatever experiences that are taking place internally within the body. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever experiences that occur internally within the body. In this manner, I continue meditating while mindfully observing and staying with the body, with keen interest and careful attention, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the experience, nor to change or fight the truth of whatever is taking place. People have written volumes on this, commentaries after commentaries for centuries, for over millennia, 2 millennia actually, trying to break down what did the Buddha say, like observing the body in the body. What is this? What? Human beings have a tendency, a knack to complicate things. That's why when I translate this, I try to make it in a way where it's relatable, understandable, contextually relevant, and things that you can apply. So any experience that is occurring within the body internally, because the Buddha made a distinction here, which we will see unfolding. And this is just the kaya portion, the body. We haven't gotten to the other three. Each one of these bases or establishments will have the internal, external, both internal and external, but something else is going on. The sensations that you're feeling, let's say in this case of the body, internally occurring, it could be something that you feel within the body, let's say a gas moving, your gut, or there's a sudden twitch within the body. Nothing touched it. Nobody came and pushed that portion of your body. You didn't jerk your body in a certain position where it had this pain. Ask anyone who's ever had any back pain, knee pain, toothache. Where's that taking place? Internally or externally? We have, as I said, we have a knack at complicating things. We take the teachings of the Buddha oftentimes and we really complicate it. When he was teaching, oftentimes, to people, regular people who could understand, he wasn't interested in philosophy and all kinds of stuff that went over their heads of the common person. But they had a big heart, they had intuitive understanding, they were very much grounded in real experience. So this is very real. The average person can relate to this, understand, yeah, internally. When I have a backache, it is painful. Whether I sit down, get up, the pain is there, for example, or knee pain. What we do is we get locked on the pain. By the way, I chose unpleasant feeling, but we'll see in a minute when we get to Vedana that it's not just the unpleasant, it's pleasant and unpleasant. So I'm highlighting the pain in the body that is felt internally, but it could also be something that feels good. Suddenly, you feel good about, oh, okay. Oof. When you have a severe constipation and you go to the bathroom and you come out and having been successful at, removing that from your body, all of a sudden there's space in your body, in your belly, and you feel good. There's space. Ooh, you feel good. That's also internally occurring. Now we focus, just like we were focused on the painful, we focus on the feeling. We do not watch the appearance, the rise, and the disappearance, and both the appearance and the disappearance. And that is why we remain in delusion. That is what I try to describe in English as willfully ignoring. We're not seeing what is happening. We're not practicing Satipatthana. We're doing what any average Joe does, average person does with those sensations. We're just going along. That is the difference. We have to be present to observe the arising of those feelings, in this case, the experiences taking place within the body, and the disappearance within the body. He next says, I meditate while observing whatever experiences that arise or take place externally on the body. I meditate while observing the disappearance of whatever experiences that are taking place externally on the body. So appearance and disappearance, vanishing. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever experiences that occur externally on the body. In this manner, I continue meditating while mindfully observing and staying with the body with keen interest and careful attention. You're very much interested. Mindfulness is interested practice, That's why I laugh when people say, oh, anybody can practice, anybody could teach mindfulness, let alone practice it. It's so easy, it's a piece of cake. Really? Keen interest and careful attention has to be there. Without having any desire to avoid or run away, evade, or the opposite, lean into the experience. Those are the examples of the two extremes of feeling-based reactions that we have, emotional reactions we have. We like that which is pleasant, we hate that which is unpleasant. We run away. But here, Anuruddha, Venerable Anuruddha is saying, without having the desire, so you're keeping yourself in check. Otherwise, you'll get self-righteous in your thinking. Yes, I'm above this, I'm aloof this, I should cut it off, or I should not have this feeling, or that's what asceticism was. Hermits and things like that, people like that, even Lord Buddha as Siddhartha, he was practicing that for 6.5 years, denying, shunning the body, looking down at the body. That was not wise. That's why he had to walk away from that, because he understood that that was never going to lead to freedom, to understanding, to panya, to nibbana, nor to change or fight the truth of whatever is taking place. So you're not sitting saying, why does this pain occur? Or in this case, because it's an externally based sensation occurring to the body, not internal, external. Why did I slam my toe against that table? Why did that wall have to be there, really? Why is the chandelier so low hanging? That's what I had to deal with a lot growing up as a teenager. When the growth spurt happened, I kept growing in height and I kept slamming my head against doorways, chandeliers. I can't tell you how many times. So many bumps, I lost count, obviously, the first year. And I was blaming the the architecture. I was blaming chandeliers. One time I asked my dad, is there a way we can lift the chandelier higher? And he's like, how high? Because there's no room left for the chandelier. Instead of looking at my lack of awareness, I was blaming the chandelier. So that is not what's happening here for the practitioner. You're not fighting, neither the chandelier nor the fact that it did occur. You did hit your head and there's a big bump on your head. Why did that car come and hit me? I was minding my own business. It came externally, and now your body's affected. So this is removing you from identifying as a you and identifying that over there as the world. Subject, object. So Satipatthana is not just, anybody could do mindfulness. There's so many subtle layers to it. Understanding, nibbana occurs because of sati being there. Without sati, forget it. It cannot happen. Let's move forward. Because the theme will play, the major, it's like a refrain. It's going to, there's a role into this. There's an important, very important role that's happening here, that's given to sati. And that's why we can never afford to put those dreaded ... dots, which unfortunately almost every version out there of this and almost all the suttas of the Anuruddha Sangyutta and this Sangyutta Nikaya have that, because you have groups of monks coming from different parts, different time periods, and they're asking essentially, in this case, where do all the paths of practice lead, Bhante, Venerable Anuruddha, friend? In this case, that's the question. In other places, you will see in the same collection, Venerable Anuruddha being asked, well, friend, how did you attain Arahantship? Friend, how did you attain the divine eye with which you're able to see the supercluster galaxies and what's going on? How is it that you know and see the thoughts of Brahma, of Sakka, the king of the 33 gods in Tavatimsa? How is it that you know? And he gives them the same answer, Satipatthana. So what many translations have done, unfortunately, they said, oh, it's the same sutta. Let's put the, repeat, and then within parentheses, it's like the other suttas, numbers X, Y, Z, refer to this. That's doing injustice. We shouldn't touch the suttas then. and call ourselves translators, or even conveyors or copiers. The whole sutta has to be translated and left intact without removing things from it. So my insistence is that we have to, if we want to benefit and gain from sutta studies, we have to know the suttas, we have to read the suttas. The suttas have to be there in the first place. And when they're not, what do? That's why this effort is here for you. And that's why I'm trying to elaborate and open it up for us to really look at what this Satipatthana, establishment of mindfulness practice, really is. Can I do it? Or do I have to read tons and volumes of commentaries about it and still get nowhere? So even though there's a refrain, it's important that we stick to it, we follow it, because what you miss at this point, at this juncture, you will gain later. So the repetition is not the case where it's valueless. It's extremely valuable because the Buddha repeated them. And students gained it the second, third time they heard it. He was the excellent teacher, which we simply try to emulate in his methodology and his clarity of understanding and teaching. So the third portion of this Kaya Anupassana is this. Further, I meditate while observing whatever experiences that arise or take place both internally and externally on the body or with the body, pertaining to the body. I meditate while observing the disappearance of whatever experiences that are taking place both internally and externally, pertaining to the body. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever experiences that occur both internally and externally, pertaining to the body. In this manner, I continue meditating while mindfully observing and staying with the body with keen interest and careful attention, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the experience, nor desiring to change or fight the truth of whatever is taking place. Now, here we go with the Vedananupassana, the second establishment of mindfulness. For some people, checking in on the body will come more naturally. If you've worked with body a lot, we usually have, at least in the entry point, in the beginning stages of Satipatthana, there will be the likelihood that we feel closer to one of these four. I just mentioned one, Kaya, the body. So if you really connect with physical activity, or you have enjoyed certain sensorial experiences, or even had massages, and it resonates with you, the physical body, you're connected too much because of karmic connections and karmic proclivities. There's too much attachment to the body. For you, the Kaya Anupassana might be the entry point. If you're more emotionally type, if you're more the intuitive type, if you're more attuned to feelings as such, and not so much the body, this section will just hit it for you. You just get it for you. It becomes more, that's what the Buddha means. There's differences between us. Each one is different. And we owe that to our samsaric journeys and what type of kammas we have, intentional actions we have been involved in, choices we have made. So what is the signature that it has on the mind? The Satipatthana, all four, address them. But as I said, if you're paying attention, the entry point, eventually, if you're practicing, all four will open up for you. Suddenly it becomes completely understandable what it means by Vedananupassana. You're able to connect with the feelings, even if you're based on the body type of a person, connecting to mindfulness through the body. So we just mentioned the body. Let's go with the feeling now. Similarly, friends, I meditate while observing whatever feelings that arise or take place internally. I meditate while observing the disappearance of whatever feelings that arise or take place internally. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever feelings that arise or take place internally. If you notice, they're very connected. The body is oftentimes required for you to have a concept of feeling. But the Buddha, to clarify that statement, the Buddha also explained the different types of feelings, the different spheres of feeling. Most of the time we think of feelings pertaining to the body. That's what most people understand. But the Buddha made the distinction between mental feelings as well. Certain concepts that we like, images, or memories we've had in the past, they're not happening in the body. Or fears or panic laden situations. All of a sudden, images, right? It's not happening to the body yet, but it creates a feeling in the body. And here you can understand it as a mental feeling because still it's in the body. If you watch a scene or a movie or even read a book that brings up, instigates certain emotional reactions, that's still happening in the body. It's internally occurring. But the problem here, again, like the case was with the body, when the sensation, when the experience is happening, we're never there to look at the start, at the spark of that feeling. We're not interested in the beginning. We're interested in the flavor of the feeling. And if it's a flavor we dislike, we label it quickly and we say, I want to push you out of my conscious, my awareness. Now, you are not wanted here. Thank you very much. Get out. Do you see? Now you're stuck back into the story of me. I'm here. And you over there, world. Why did this happen to me? Memories usually induce those states, right? In us. Even though there's nothing touching us, nothing rubbing against us, the body, for example. Suddenly something occurs, a memory, sanya comes in, perception comes in, and we are lost in an ocean of feelings that did not occur 5 seconds ago. But now it occurs. So here, Satipatthana is also guiding us to look at the spark point. Point 0, where the feeling took shape. What was it? So the practitioner proper will look at the beginning, the arising of the feeling. The arising of the feeling. And this is another reason why, for some people, paying attention to feeling is a lot more delicate work, is, in other words, harder to catch the starting point of the feeling compared to the starting point of feeling that is occurring internally in the body. You see what I mean? One is more grosser than the feeling part of a sensation, especially if it's a memory-induced feeling. For that, your sati has to be developed more. It needs more practice to be able to spot the connection between the memory and the feeling, because you're here practicing vipassana. Remember, this is teaching you vipassana if you're doing it correctly. Instead of memorizing the terms, people have memorized these, just like in the Paticca They think by simple recitation of the verses, they know it. Nothing could be further from the truth, unfortunately, in this case. So, as the practice of Satipatthana develops and you're doing it correctly, the way is instructed here, you start seeing, oh, I'm feeling this, but I was feeling fine 2 seconds ago. What happened? Oh yeah, that thought came in. So you're able to retrace the mental steps. You're able to retrace the feeling steps, because right now you're crying, let's say, you're sad. But then clearly you look back and you're rewinding the tape. That is sati in action. When you're looking to see the connection of your mental states and impermanence, anicca. Things not being stable, stationary, reliable, because now you're feeling dreadful, but you also honestly look back and you see, oh, wait a minute. 10 minutes ago, I was on cloud nine. I was having a blast. I was feeling amazing. What happened in between? Now you're able to unfold and you start seeing the connection. Oh, yeah, this happened. That, oh, I see. I saw that image. Oh, that song played. All of a sudden, I remembered those times when I was with those people and it felt great. And now I looked around and they're not here. Oh, now you're back into the painful feeling. Do you see what happens? This is a lot more delicate work than looking at the body. That's one of the reasons why some teachers will say it's better to start with the body because it's on the grosser level. Although there are some students who are able to jump in straight to Vedana, but sooner or later the teacher has to also teach them to use the body so they could be familiar with the Kayanupassana. So these all four are necessary, but they're not absolute. I say necessary to get a better understanding of Satipatthana, that is. But you could become an Arahant simply by practicing one of them. But that doesn't mean that you're not able to apply the same penetrative insight to all four. Because if you're able to attain Arahantship with one, that means your development in practice of insight is really deep. So it really doesn't matter what mental object or method you're doing in the case of the Satipatthana, which one you prefer, because that's what it comes down to. Resonates with the person better, one or more. Anyhow, in this manner, I continue. I read that. So next, I meditate while observing whatever feelings that arise or take place due to external causes. I meditate while observing the disappearance of whatever feelings that arise or take place due to external causes. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever feelings that arise or take place due to external causes. External cause could be something that comes to me through another person, a situation. I was giving the example of a wall, right? Or chandeliers that I was hitting my head to, but it could be something that like you're practicing yoga, some of the asanas are obviously more demanding, balancing poses, etc., or holding a pose for 5 breaths minimum. You're maintaining that ujjayi breath, you're maintaining that, but it's a very demanding posture, and your body starts shaking. Okay, and then everybody is looking forward for that time where the teacher hopefully gives you that nudge and says, okay, go ahead and let's get into a corpse position. Everybody loves the corpse position, and you lay down on your back. What is that? That's an external cause. Feeling that is generated because of an external cause. Why? Because earlier you were in what state? You were shaking. It was an external cause because of what you were putting the body through, even though no one was touching you, let's say. See, there's so many ways you can look at this. So I'm giving these examples. They're not by any means the only way, of course, But the essence of it has to be this teaching of Satipatthana. In this manner, I continue meditating while mindfully observing feelings with keen interest and careful attention without having any desire to avoid or lean into the experience, nor to change or fight the truth of whatever is taking place. So if you use that example of lying down or laying down on your back on a yoga mat or on the beach, and that's the image I used to use with students when I would teach yoga, I would say, after all that work, the heart racing, and now it's slowing down, the sweating is slowing down, and then I would say, imagine your yoga mat is wet sand, and the heaviest points of your body at that moment, the back of the body, like the elbows, the shoulders, the buttocks, the heels, the backs of the thighs, the back of the skull, sinking into the wet sand. And sometimes I would hear people go, ah, they're really in a restful state. But most people will go on and travel at that moment in their mind into the emotion. They will lean into the feeling of pleasant feeling. They will say, oh, this I prefer over that gruesome set of, let's say, sun salutations or whatever I was doing. Now we're back to asmimana, the conceit I am. I am here, the world and its conditions are there. The body being heavy, this, that. I like this kind of feeling, thank you very much, not that. This means the mind is not practicing Satipatthana at all. You're doing what a regular Putujjana does. You're not seeing the temporariness, the instability of feelings, the unreliability of feelings that betray us all the time. This is another way of understanding what it means by conditionality. It's conditional. If the conditions are right, this is what's going to happen. So this is a normal situation that nevertheless deepens our understanding of the Dhamma. Let's move on. Further, I meditate while observing whatever feelings that arise or take place, both internally and due to external causes. I meditate while observing the disappearance of whatever feelings that arise or take place, both internally and due to external causes. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever feelings that arise or take place, both internally and due to external causes. In this manner, I continue meditating while mindfully observing feelings with keen interest and careful attention, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the experience, nor to change or fight the truth of whatever is taking place. So it could be generated within, like we discussed, with either physical experience that cause us to feel good, internally based, or somebody else comes and, let's say, a breeze that touches your skin, or when you take a dip into warm water in a hot summer day, and you jump into a pool, and you feel the molecules of water touching all the surfaces of your body pretty much. And sometimes it gives you such an exhilaration, such joy. When you are no longer playing the game of I like this, I don't like this, you start peeling away the veil of samsara, peeling away the veil of delusion, of ignorance, because you're no longer willfully ignoring, you're curious. Do you understand now what I meant by the goal, having the goal in mind, or the vow? Yeah, I'm going to attain the goal of the holy life or whatever, attain this level of awakening. all that is ultimately nonsense when it is not protected by a solid practice, maintained by a solid practice. And this is a solid practice that's being described for us. There's no wishful thinking involved. This is another way of understanding what the Buddha says. Each one has to realize for themselves. So you can't join a group and expect yourself to become awakened. Some people do that. We call them cults. For good reason. Because the brain no longer is functioning. A robot has a better future than that person's brain. Because they stopped growing. Satipatthana isn't like that. Next, we get to the Chitta Anupassana. Chitta, many people translate as the mind. I don't like to, again, it's contextually, dependent, but usually it means the heart. Not the organ heart as we know in physiology or, anatomically, but the heart as in intuition. But also the mental states that come and go, fluctuations. A distracted mind, for example, is a perfect example. Or a mind that is so calm, equanimous. You cannot attain with a mind that is fluctuating, restless. There needs to be that intuitive awareness present. But in order for us to get to that, we have to apply these steps. Let's see what Venerable Anuruddha says. Similarly, friends, I meditate while observing whatever mental states that arise or take place internally. I meditate while observing the disappearance of whatever mental states that are taking place internally. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever mental states that occur internally. Appearance, disappearance, both appearance and disappearance. Craving and its constant thirst for more will always be there to blur the lines between appearance and disappearance. What I mean by that is craving or the longing, the yearning, nandiraga, or the passion, basically, to delight. To keep us in delusion, will come in and say, right before it dies out, that mental state, especially now I'm referring to pleasant feelings or pleasant mental states, rather. And says, don't worry, we got another one over there. There's a promise of over there, that's something else. If you've ever watched, if you've ever scrolled on your cell phone, if you've ever watched YouTube videos, especially what they call these shorter clips, I think that's what they're called, short clips. Watch the mind. See how it wants to flip through or scroll. I don't know, up, down. I don't know how it works, but basically either way, left or right, or you're moving to the next one. What that means is you're not interested to see the disappearance of that. You want to sustain that. You want to be in perpetual Disneyland mode. Perpetual pleasure land. Utopia of pleasure. Now, of course, the same thing can be said about someone who is only interested in seeing the mind be calm, which is a temptation that everyone goes through. We want to only experience upekkha. Thank you very much. But what is that? That is exactly the same as nandiraga sahagata. Tatra tatra bhinandini, delighting here, delighting there, always jumping, that passion, the thirst for more exciting, and that's what commercial, entities. Algorithms are written specifically for keeping us locked in that mode. So today's technology of consumerism and capitalism is completely adhamma. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to have both. If you're exposed to it, you have to be in the world. If you're living not under a rock, but at least bring the Satipatthana in, so you see, you're interested to see that for the sake of looking at the appearance, the arising, and disappearance. And there you go. You're practicing Satipatthana. You're practicing, in fact, Vipassana. Because you're observing now, you're able to catch it at the moment of starting, but especially at the moment of vanishing. That is even more important. When you see the sensation ending, when you see the mental state changing. Because right at the changing point, what was happening prior to that? A millisecond prior. Do you see how this is kind of like, it's more subtle than the Vedananupassana. Definitely more subtle than the Kayanupassana. That's why some teachers will not have the students start with Chittanupassana immediately. They will work them, allow them to practice for some time until they get to this level. Because the mind has to be able to detect finer nuances of change. There are a lot, not as gross as the previous ones. In this manner, I continue meditating while mindfully observing mental states with keen interest and careful attention, without having any desire to avoid nor nor lean into the experience, nor to change or fight the truth of whatever is taking place. I meditate while observing whatever mental states that are arising due to outside causes. I meditate while observing the disappearance of whatever mental states that are arising due to outside causes. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever mental states that are arising due to outside causes. Outside causes? You can pick any of the examples I gave just now, but whatever you're exposed to, whether willingly, willfully, or not, intentionally or not, you were fine here. You were listening to a lovely piece of music, let's say, and then there's a heavy a knock on the door. You're not going to stay in that lovely state, right? You were when you were listening to, or not listening to anything. You were just calmly practicing meditation. Where is that calmness? What happened? Something from the outside came in and disturbed you, shook you from that state of equanimity. That is what we're talking about. So the non-practitioner will say, oh, who invited that? I never asked for anyone to come. Don't they know that this is my meditation period? Why did this dog start barking all of a sudden? Why are the neighbors quarreling? Who told that car to play that music so loudly as they pass in front of my window? Do you see? All these are outside causes, but it's a huge opportunity that is being wasted. Why? Again, we have me here and the world over there. We are still stuck in samsara. We are still doing what the Putujjana does, trying to eliminate the outside conditions so they can feel better and more in control of the inside conditions, as if that's going to work. Instead, the Vipassana practitioner says, whether it's internal or external, I have nothing to do with it. They're simply part of the process. If I weren't here physically, if I wasn't practicing meditation, it wouldn't have jolted me out of, my sit, the knocking at the door. Or whether I was alive or not, was the car going to play that music? Or were the neighbors going to argue and fight? Or the dog, was it not going to bark suddenly because I didn't exist? Do you see the ridiculousness of our position, our deluded position, that is, becomes manifest? This is wisdom taking shape, sprouting, blossoming in us. Because now you're cutting yourself from that wrong view that, oh, there's me here, there's you over there, subject and object. Instead, you see it as a process. You see it as, wait a minute, you mean to say that if I were deaf, my ears didn't function, if I completely was deaf, that I couldn't hear the dogs barking? Yeah. That I couldn't hear the neighbors arguing? Yeah. That I couldn't hear the car passing by or know that there would be a car? Or yes. So because I have ears that work, which means I have ear consciousness, which means there's contact happening, which means I'm going to have a certain feeling as a result of that. And because I have a feeling, then it means that I'm going to have a longing or a craving to not make that particular sound happen and versus another. None of that would have happened if I wasn't here, if I didn't have ears, if I didn't have ear. Yes, yes, yes. Did you see? You just unfolded this phenomenon called life. You no longer are looking at it as a compact thing. You're looking at it as a cluster of things. Conditionality. Now we're talking paticca samuppada. It's no longer links. It's a reality, and yet that's your living reality. There's nothing to memorize. You're seeing it through the eyes. That's called living experience, through your presence here. That's what it's called when the Buddha says diteva dhamme. It's never going to occur outside over there, some other world. Clarity of vision and understanding. It's not going to be there in another life that you experience nibbana somewhere in mystical land of possibility. No, it's through living experience where you are fully present. And Satipatthana provides us that. You see, it gives us the regalness, that power, sense of, oh, so it's up to me. Is that what Lord Buddha is saying? Is that what Bhante Anuruddha is saying? Is that what the sutta is saying? Yes, yes, yes. Wow. So you're no longer up for grabs by sensations, appearances and disappearance. So all we have to do is observe that. And that's why we practice meditation. In this manner, I continue meditating while mindfully observing these mental states with keen interest and careful attention, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the experience nor change or fight the truth of whatever is taking place. I meditate while observing the mental states that arise or take place both internally and those arising due to outside causes. I meditate while observing the disappearance of whatever mental states that arise or take place both internally and those arising due to outside causes. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of whatever mental states that arise or take place both internally and those arising due to outside causes. Internally or externally. So internally, a cause here would be like a hindrance that comes in. But in the Chittanupassana, we're not looking at the hindrance itself. That's Dhammanupassana. Here, we're looking at the recipient of that influence, meaning the mind. You're looking at the mind, you're saying, listen, I was in a jhana. I was in a deep state of calm. Suddenly, I became drowsy. Suddenly, I lost the interest. Why? I became sleepy. Why? You're not getting into an intellectual conversation. When I say why, it's silent. You're not even saying it internally in your mind. The sati lens, the camera, the telescope is working to understand what was the reason behind the change in mental state. You see how upekkha came and went, but the mind is seeking for a reason, thinking that once upekkha landed or tranquility of mind occurred or jhana occurred, then it should not budge. It should not change in state. Oh, really? So you want to be the exception here? Anicca doesn't apply to you and your meditation and your state of practice? Do you see the craving there? I was not asked for upekkha to vanish. I was never going to allow it to vanish because I like it. So I'm now looking for ways to regain it back and to regain that sense of joy. If you're in the first jhana or about to, or experiencing it more and more, it's flaring up. Now it's gone. Why? So now you're looking at the mind that's becoming agitated because of craving. Because of the agitation, you're able to spot the craving. Craving is not a word. It's not a concept. It's not a poster, a billboard that you see hanging somewhere in the mind, or you're trying to, it's wearing an invisible cloak. No, it's a state that is covered, if any, by our ignorance to look at it, to be curious enough to look for it. So Cittanupassana is more interested at looking at the mind. It's crucial for your meditation to develop, to see, oh, why is the mind so restless? And then you observe it. You observe, and then you see how it wasn't always restless. It came, now it's persisting, yes, okay, but you're now not attached, but you're observing it. That's why you're practicing vipassana. You're not fighting it, you're observing it. Because you also know that all that arises also vanishes, disappears. You're not trying to push it away. You're not eager for it to end, because that also means there's still craving. So now the mind is also observing that. So you're seeing, like the disco ball, the different facets of it. The mind is so complex, but here we have an exquisite tool called the Satipatthana, introduced by the Buddha, that teaches us how to look at individual facets, at least the method of which we could see, we could understand, and then develop so that all facets of the mind could become clear. So the internal and externally causes. Now we get to the fourth one, Dhammanupassana. Dhamma, again, this is not the teachings or the Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha. No, Dhamma was a word, a phrase, a principle that was used at the time of the Buddha. Like most of the other terms, like kamma, like samsara, like devas, etc. The Buddha came in and explained what it really means. So in this case, Dhamma, also in English, we write it in small d, lowercase d, which means, as I said, things. It could be phenomena or phenomenon, singular. So earlier I mentioned about hindrances. They are part of that. The five aggregates are part of that, including the Four Noble Truths. You can look at them as principles. This is as you might have guessed, this is even more subtle than the previous three of the Satipatthana. That's why it's not recommended for individuals to all of a sudden start with Dhammanupassana. The mind is not yet well trained to, I guess, handle the different nuances and layers of phenomena and experiences that are happening. Because all of these are occurring at every one of the doors, the six sense doors. But all of these four are also, when the practitioner gets that developed, They can even detect Dhammanupassana through the Kayanupassana. They can see clearly the hindrances, for example, through the body. If that's their practice, they can still see it because they're so advanced. It doesn't really make a difference for that level of competence, advanced level. Anyhow, similarly, friends, I meditate while observing the various phenomena and their relationships that arise or take place internally. I meditate while observing the disappearance of relationships, phenomena, and their relationships of whatever phenomena that are taking place internally. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of the relationships of whatever phenomena that arise or take place internally. In this manner, I continue meditating while observing the various phenomena and their relationships with keen interest and careful attention, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the experience, nor to change or fight the truth of whatever is taking place. Another example is using the Satta Bojjhangas, the 7 factors of awakening. This is a perfect example of how to use the 7 factors of awakening. When the hindrances are there, you've seen me mention this, it's also mentioned in the book, how to address the obstructions or hindrances, what we call nivarana, which are primarily 5 or groups of 5. We have kamachanda, which is sensual, greed, lust, passion, etc. Vyapada, which is ill will, hatred, dislike, aversion, pushing something away. Next is the drowsiness and laziness, procrastination, sleepiness, group, sloth and torpor, tinamida. Then we get to the restlessness and worry, panicking even, being concerned, unsettled, restlessness, therefore. Uddacha kukucha, that's number 4, group number 4. And the last one is vichikicha. This is a tough one for many people because it's skeptical doubt, which doubt about yourself, where you are on the path. Are you even on the path? Are you practicing the right teaching? Is your teacher the right teacher? So especially the last one is one of the favorite tools of Mara to confuse the practitioner, to lead you astray, to make you lose your path and lose interest and be stuck in samsara. So these are part of the Dhammanupassana set of principles we can use. But to address them, you bring in the 7 factors of awakening. The Lord Buddha says this clearly in the Anguttara Nikaya as well as in the Samyutta Nikaya. So you look at what's the enemy of the other. So if you have restlessness and worry, they're hot in energy, they're agitated, they're moving fast. They're like very fast moving kinetic energy that's found in molecules in a balloon that you keep adding pressure to. Boom, 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 slamming all over the place. How can you practice meditation with that? So first, you need to know what's happening. For that, sati comes in and says, oh, hello. Then Dhamma Vichaya, which is the second portion of the 7 factors of awakening. Second factor, and says, oh, this is what's happening. Interesting. It is restlessness. Restlessness. The mind is restless. And then, because Dhamma Vichaya is investigation of state, it has within it wisdom, discernment function. It says, oh, I have to counteract this with its opposite, which happens to be pasadhi, tranquility of mind. I can't add more energy because I'm already hyped up. I'm very, very hyper, kinetic energy, moving like crazy, restlessness, worry. The last thing you want to do is fight that with more energy, such as blasting it away willfully, which is what Siddhartha Gautama used to do. Suppressive techniques do. They never get the job done because it's you fighting you. So for that, you need to balance the energy. So the soothing quality of tranquility of mind, which is pasadhi, and samadhi, as well as upekkha come in and sedate, calm down that restlessness, the panic. How did you do this? You applied Dhammanupassana. This is an advanced way of practicing. For starters, we need to practice it by seeing the arising of, for example, the hindrance of restlessness, for example. And then you're also observing how it ends. Remember, earlier I was saying, arising and vanishing. I meditate while observing the various phenomena and their relationships that are arising due to outside causes. I meditate while observing the disappearance of the various phenomena and their relationships that are arising due to outside causes. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of the various phenomena and their relationships that are arising due to outside causes. In this manner, I continue meditating while observing the various phenomena and their relationships with keen interest and careful attention, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the experience, nor to change or fight the truth of whatever is taking place. So that was the externally caused, introduced, because the hindrance, if you look at it as such, you can say it's generated inside, within, internally. But if you use like some of the examples I gave earlier for Chittanupassana or Vedananupassana, like the dog's barking, what did the dog barking do to you? It created agitation. What? Restlessness. Worry that, oh, I'm not going to be able to complete my meditation, at least the way I want it, just like Venerable Anuruddha did. Oh, so much I'm like perfected, samadhi, sariputta. I'm like the guy when it comes to having dibbachaku. Everybody comes to me asking me about their curiosity about this God, that God. I can tell them exactly what I see. I have that, but I don't have the calm. I'm not yet an arahant. That's a restless mind, you know. That's greedy, that's conceited, that is afraid. Because he was afraid that he wasn't going to attain. So what is that? Dhammanupassana points that out to him. Oh, because Venerable Satipatthana, when Anuruddha came and asked him this question, Anuruddha saw, Venerable Satipatthana saw what was going on because he was already practicing Satipatthana. He saw the weak spots in his process, in his path of practice. And that's why he pointed him back to that which is the undying, amata dhatu, another name for release, capital R, another name for nibbana, cessation of suffering. Also, I meditate while observing the various phenomena and their relationships that arise or take place both internally and those arising due to outside causes. I meditate while observing the disappearance of the various phenomena and their relationships that are taking place both internally and those arising due to outside causes. I meditate while observing both the appearance and disappearance of the various phenomena and their relationships that occur internally and those arising due to outside causes. In this manner, I continue meditating while observing the various phenomena and their relationships with keen interest and careful attention, without having any desire to avoid nor lean into the experience, nor to change or fight the truth of whatever is taking place. And what is it that you're using for this? What is your anchor point? Your body. This birth, diteva dhamme. You don't need something extra, in case you were wondering. Some gift from another universe, some God has to give you, some blessing, some revelation of some sort. You have already what it takes. You have all the material or material. In this case, you also have the teaching because the Satipatthana is the way how to use the material. Other places, Venerable Anuruddha says, I use this very body. I use this very body through the Satipatthana. He says, that's how I became an Arahant. People expect there to be this incredibly mystical, colorful, incomprehensible thing going on, which later on traditions in Buddhism turned it into, unfortunately. Complete farce, complete sad, actually, what they've done. Terrible, terrible karma they brought to themselves. To this day. But when you look at the teaching, how beautiful, simple it is. Because it has everything to do with your body, with your feelings, with your mind states, with what you deal with on a regular basis already. So you don't have to do something like you don't have to carry more. You just have to observe what is already taking place. And that's why secluding from your normal is very important. Secluding from your carnal desires or from whatever it is that distract you. Secluding from them regularly at certain time periods is key to help you to digest all this information and to apply it above all. And then Venerable Anuruddha goes, as a result of this training, friends, I attained the great, direct, and intuitive knowledge by dedicatedly cultivating these four establishments of mindfulness practice, and doing so with strong earnestness. And it is due to dedicating all my time and energy to cultivating these four establishments of mindfulness practice, and with unprecedented and strong earnestness, that I can now truly understand and see where exactly all the different paths of practice lead to. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. What a rich, rich sutta. I highly recommend pacing yourself through it. So do download it. The PDF is available. Listen to it. Read it carefully. It's good because it's not that there aren't that many pages. I think there's 3 or 4 pages total. Print it if you can and put it next to you with a highlighter. You can underline, add your own thoughts to it, what you don't understand, what is making sense, and then put it away, maybe not too far away from you, and then sit, continue your sitting, or post it on your walls, or you know, and every so often go back to it in your room, looking at it. Earnestness is that you have to be engaged in the thing that you feel is going to help you, at least feel is going to help you. That's why you're listening to the suttas, these discourses, because they have something that the world cannot provide. They definitely provide you something that you previously could not provide, which is even more important. And that means also that you're developing in your understanding, in your purity. Purity does not happen overnight. And it doesn't come from someone else. It's you doing the work. Intentionally, willfully, volitionally. And that's the only way we can cross over the flood of suffering, of delusion. I will stop here and see if there are any questions or comments. Okay, then let's transfer some merits. Akasatha ca bhumata devanaga mahindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu loka sasanam. Akasatha ca bhumata devanaga mahindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanam. Akasatha Chubumata Devanaga Mahindika Punyantang Anumoditva Chirangrakantu Mamparanti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you all grow in the Dhamma. May you have every day an increase, noticeable increase in your sense of contentment and joy, and definitely which comes from understanding, that comes from you applying the Dhamma in your life in different ways than you used to before, and not be afraid of doing that, and trust that development in you. And may you continuously change the world through that mechanism. The only matter of fact, the only valid means of changing the world to the better. May you and your loved ones grow in prosperity, in health, in joy, in appreciation for one another, in respecting one another, and in developing more and more loving kindness towards yourself and towards others. And seeing that the next time we join will be in the new year, 2026, not the Buddhist era. We're in Buddhism, the years are a little bit longer. But may you really gain that which you want to gain in the Dhamma. May there be peace in your lives. Until next time, Sukhi Hot.